sewing friends. So I'm sewing the Ann Normandy Slip Dress, and I've set up my machine so that I can do the stay stitching around the neckline, and I'm doing it at 1/8 of an inch away from the cut edge on the neckline and armhole seams. And on my sewing machine foot I have some markings here that allow me, I'll show you up close here, there we go, that allow me to measure that. So basically I'm putting the needle or on the center line, and then I'm running the foot on this inner edge along the edge of the garment so that I can get a good line up there. So you'll see what I'm doing here when I'm doing that. Even though it seems a little weird to talk about, you'll see exactly what I'm doing here. Stick that back on there. And I am placing the cut edge. Just get this thread in place here. There we go. I'm placing the cut edge along the outer right-hand side of the foot, and the center line on my presser foot, which is where the needle's going, is exactly 1/8 of an inch away. So it's pretty easy to line up, and your machine will probably be similar. So I just run the toe of that along the outer edge, and I'm not stretching, I'm kind of driving along the curve. So I'm not pulling this straight, I'm just driving with my left hand around this curve, just like that. Now you can mark this all the way around if you want to. I didn't, simply because I have my foot is the exact distance away. So then you can see I've got this 1/8 of an inch away from there. I'm going to go ahead and do the armhole. This is the back I'm sewing right now, so I'm going to do the armhole here. And this is a racer back style dress, more or less. So you've got a kind of an extended open armhole here that goes up over the shoulder. And you'll notice I'm sewing the stay stitching before I've done anything else to the dress. So this is my very first stitching of anything on this dress. And this just helps stabilize the neckline, but we're also going to use it as a guideline for pressing. And you will see that here in a moment. And we'll do the last one here. And again, you can see I'm just driving this fabric around with my left hand. I'm not stretching it at all with my right hand. I'm just keeping this in the right place with my finger. Isn't this linen just gorgeous? It's absolutely gorgeous color. It's going to be beautiful. And by the way, I did cut it, as I showed you, I did cut it with the raw edge hem here along the selvage edge, and I'm going to leave this. It'll have a really nice natural drape to it. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've stay stitched my whole back. Now I've already done the front, but one thing you should note on the front is there is this V neckline, and the instructions state it pretty clearly, but you should not try to stitch a V. Just continue around in a little curve. So you can see that I've just continued around a little curve there, right on that edge. I've just continued around, and you can see it already started to kind of pull when I was handling it. So you really have to be careful to do this at an early stage of the game when you're sewing. So now my two pieces have been stay stitched, so I'm going to move on to my next step, which is pressing. All right, Ann Normandy sewing friends, so I'm going to show you a little bit about the pressing today. So what you're going to want to do is use your stay stitching guide and turn under the edge right along your 1/8 of an inch and give it a good solid press, just like this as you go. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other side here. And again, I'm just folding it along that 1/8 of an inch that I just stitched. And get your fingers out of the way so you don't burn them. Sometimes people use like a pin or something else to kind of hold it. I can just fold it under with my fingers and then just kind of run around that edge like that. But just be careful, and if you need to use a pin or something or a seam rip or something to hold that in place. Now once you get that first press, you want to go ahead and let it cool. And then when you're done, this side's already cool, you're going to turn it in once more. And this is going to create a pretty narrow shoulder line along your shoulder edge, and that's normal. So you notice we're doing this before we've stitched the shoulders. That's correct. So I'm not stitching the shoulders because these shoulders are actually going to be flat felled at 3/4 of an inch, I believe, in the instructions. And so this is the first step. You're going to be pressing around this whole edge and turning under. And then we're going to edge stitch this when we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and fold under the armhole here on this side too. Just the first, this is the first turn now on the armhole. And you can see it's pretty tiny in here. This is the hardest part of the whole dress. Everything else is super simple. This is the hardest, most difficult part. But again, I'm just going like that. And if I need to stop, no problem. And then get this next turn with my fingers. Okay, and just give it a little squish down there with my fingers. And then I'm going to go again with the iron. That way I'm keeping the steam away from my fingers. And I'm just adjusting it here as I go. Again, under with my fingers, just like that. And then I'm going to come in here with the iron. And your fingers actually do a pretty decent job of getting that first kind of squish under, because your fingers have moisture in them and the linen kind of responds to that heat and moisture. And it looks like I unpressed that in my efforts up here. Okay, so now that I've got this first turn, I'm going to do my second turn. And again, I'm going to do my second turn and then I'm going to press. And this creates a really narrow, like almost like a spaghetti strap shoulder at the top here. So this is really narrow, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it under. And essentially you're getting a 3/8 inch turn here. And these two come together, they kind of just like nick each other right at the top here. Now, depending on how you've cut this, it might be slightly wider or slightly narrow. Mine's going to be actually fairly narrow probably because I cut it fairly narrow, but it does come together pretty narrow. Mine is actually going to come together almost in a little spaghetti strap here at the top. Okay. So if you cut a little bit narrow, it's going to be narrow at the top, but that's okay. By the way, we should talk about what you're going to wear underneath this. I recommend like a racerback bra with fairly thin straps if you're going to wear a bra underneath it. You can also wear a strapless bra, which works really well too, like one of the stretchy ones, the tube style ones. Those work really well too. Ooh, yep, fingers. Gotta get those fingers out of the way. Ooh, yeah, fingers. So that's probably the hardest part here, is really just managing the whole finger thing, getting your fingers out of the way. And honestly, you know, this board is warm right now, so just pressing this other part into here is already getting like a really good shape right into here without even grabbing the iron and running it over it. So, and again, I'm just going to keep going around until I get both edges turned under twice, and I got to do this edge over here. And your total amount that you're going to be pressing under at this point is 3/8 of an inch. So between two folds is 3/8. So you got the first eighth and then you got the second eighth, but it really comes out to 3/8 when you're done. So this one's going to come together. Now you notice this one's a little bit wider than the other one. And it's just probably because I cut just a little bit incorrectly. But in order to make this dress look right, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that these edges also match here, so that the width of this and this at the top are identical. And I'll do the same on the back. So it just could be that when I trimmed this, or when I cut this originally, I cut this one a little bit narrower for whatever reason. Sometimes it happens when you're cutting. And, don't think that you're not perfect. I mean, we all do it, right? We cut a little bit narrower, or that sort of thing. But I'm just going to go ahead and make sure they're the same width, because that's really the most important thing when you're looking at it, is that these are exactly the same width. So I'm going to go ahead and continue my pressing all the way around here. And then when we're done, I'm going to do exactly the same thing to the back pattern piece. And the widths here, here, and on the back shoulders are going to be exactly the same on both garments. And what you're looking for in the end is this. Okay? So that's how it's going to be sewn, like this. And you're going to end up with this flat felled seam at the top. And you can see it's pretty narrow even here. You can see how I've done it here on this one. Looks like I got a thread to trim. That's come unsewed. Oh, something's come unsewed. Well, you should always be prepared to fix your garments as you wear them, because this has been worn and loved. And this one's even come out, like some of the edge stitching's even come out. This has been worn and loved and worn and loved. So that's what we're going to be going for here. So I'll have to actually fix this one too. But a well-worn dress, a well-loved dress, gets a lot of use in my wardrobe. Things need fixing. Just have to work on it as you go, okay? So that's what we're doing with this garment. So I will continue on with my pressing here, and I'm gonna go ahead and press my back pattern piece, and then we'll return for the next stage. This is a super simple dress, can be sewn in really about an hour. I'm going slowly through the garment just so you can kind of see how things come together. Hi there, sewing friends. So today we're sewing the Ann Normandy Slip Dress, and I've gone ahead and I've pressed all of my edges under, and now I'm gonna go ahead and stitch them. And I'm going to work from the wrong side just because it's a little bit easier to see what you're stitching. So I'm going to go ahead and edge stitch these down. I've already pressed them within an inch of their life, just like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and stitch. And because I'm edge stitching along here, I'm going to go ahead and actually place my presser foot so that I'm just inside the left toe of the presser foot on this side. What I'm doing with that left toe thing, just to get the alignment correct, is stitching, and I'll pull this off the machine as soon as I show you, is just stitching really close to that left edge. Okay, let me pull this off and I'll show you. So what I've done is I've just stitched really close to that left edge there, right there, you can see. And that's what's going to look like on the outside. So really nice. I'll give it a final press when I'm done before I sew the shoulder seam. So I'm going to go ahead now and do all the other edges and stitch them all down on the front and back. And then when I come back, we'll sew the shoulder seams together. All right, so now our armhole and neckline seams are all sewed, so we're going to go ahead and attach the front to the back at the shoulder seams. So right side's facing up, right side facing down on the back, so you have right sides together. I'm going to go ahead and pin and mark 3/4 of an inch. So 3/4 of an inch is right there, and I'm going to go ahead and just place a pin across at 3/4 of an inch. Now, why 3/4 of an inch? Because these are going to be sewn flat felled, so they're nice, clean finishes. So I'm going to do the same thing here at 3/4 of an inch. And I'll just measure that and be sure. Yep, perfect. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we are going to stitch across here and across here as per the instructions, and then we'll do the flat felling. All right, now I have the shoulder seams stitched and I have them pressed open like this and then pressed towards the front as the instructions. So this is the front. And I'm going to actually lift up and I'm going to trim this front seam allowance to 1/4 inch, right? So just trim that right off like that, okay? And then I'm going to fold this one under that one, so you can see I'm folding it under, and then I'm flipping it forward, and then I'm going to press, okay? So let's go ahead and get that in place. Look at how beautiful that is. Yes, looks really nice. I'm also going to go ahead and secure that with a pin, just so that when I stitch it down, it'll be all good. So that folded under, and perfect. Okay, now I'm going to do this one as well. So I'm going to trim away that front seam allowance, and then I'm going to fold this under and press. Just like that. Perfect. And then I'm going to go ahead and just put a little pin in there so it's ready for stitching. So fold it under. Stick a pin in there. And that is ready for stitching. So now I'm going to go ahead and secure both of these across here by stitching and make sure everything's all good with my shoulder seams, and then I'll show it to you when it's fully pressed. All right, now that is my fully finished neckline and shoulder seam. I'll give it a little bit of a press here, and we're good to go onto our side seams. Now when we start our side seams, we're going to be placing the right sides together, and we are going to be stitching our side seams with a 3/4 inch. Remember, 3/4 inch. And the reason for that is we're going to be flat felling the seam. So I'm going to mark 3/4 of an inch on my side seam, and I'm going to place a row of pins down my side seam, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch it from the underarm seam to my raw edge hem down here. So pin it up at 3/4 of an inch and then give it a stitch all the way down the side.